So in today's class, we are going to discuss how to fetch data from database to WebdynPro application. So there are some basic points that you need to remember. When you are fetching data from database, we can use something like component controller. So this component controller we are going to introduce today, and component controller also contains a context here. And this component control is global. Whichever methods has to be used in other views, those methods should be declared in component controller. And whichever data should be used in multiple views should be declared in component controller. So whatever you design in component controller, that is global to all the views. So this controller is global to all the views and view controllers in component. So don't forget this basic point. This is global. Component controller is global to all the views as well as all the view controllers inside one component. So in our real-time examples, we always use component controller because in real time we use multiple views. Whenever multiple views comes into picture, so component controller participation is compulsory. So this is one of the controller we are going to use. So in step 1, when you fetch the data, in step 1, you have to bring your database records. You have to bring your database records to component controller node. So we are going to create one node in component controller, say for example iTab. Here iTab is a node. So we are going to do that. Database records that will come to component controller, and this is done by using select query. So don't forget this. We try to implement select query to do this operation. Step 2. So in step 2 what we do is, we try to, sorry, this is component controller. First of all, we'll bring the data to internal table. So you can bring the data from database to internal table by using select query. And moreover, in step 2, internal table data should be assigned to node iTab. So this we are going to do by using bind table method. This is a standard method given by SAP. This is a standard method given by SAP to assign internal table records to node iTab. So in our WebdynPro, internal table will be always like something like LT underscore that node name. This is our naming convention we follow. LT underscore some node name. And after that, our internal table records will come to node iTab. So these are the two levels we have to implement. In step 3, we maintain context mapping relationship between component controller as well as view controller. So this is the next step. That means component controller context. Component controller data will come to view controller context. So this is done by using context mapping. So that means context mapping we have to implement. That is third step. And in step 4, we try to maintain context binding, relationship between view controller and a view. So what context mapping will do? Context mapping is responsible for data transfer. Similarly, in 4th step, we try to maintain context binding. This is also for data transfer. This is also for data transfer here. So that means these are the 4 basic steps we are going to follow. Whenever you fetch the data, these are the steps that we try to implement always. This is a very basic example, but day by day from now onwards in the next 3 classes, you'll get more and more clarity when I do the same thing every time. So in this example, there may be some confusion, but daily we are going to adopt the same procedure. Then you'll get more and more clarity. So let me do this here, how exactly it works. So I'm going to our WebdynPro. I'm creating one separate application here. Let me create one separate component, something like set fetch data underscore COMP. So I'm creating one default window and this is a default view. So I'm just trying to save it. So in today's class, we are going to use component controller. Let me highlight this one. This component controller is responsible for transferring data to multiple views. So don't forget that basic point. So from now onwards, we are going to use this component controller since it is responsible for transferring data to multiple views. So let me double click component controller, and this also contains context. I'm creating one node. You can see I'm creating a node, say for example iTab. Here node name can be anything. You can give something like VBAK also. But here I'm taking node name as iTab. I'll discuss other properties later, but in today's class we'll try to take dictionary structure. That is, say for example VBAK. I want to fetch data from VBAK table, so let us take dictionary structure as that VBAK. And the point here is, when you are trying to bring the records to node iTab can have 0 records, it can have either 1 record, or you can have 2 records or 3 records, or it can have n number of records. When you are bringing the data to node iTab, it can have minimum 0 or 1, 2, 3, or it can be n number. So that's the reason why you have to define what should be the minimum count, what should be the maximum count, that you need to define while creating the node iTab. So in our case, minimum is 0, maximum is n number. Minimum is 0, maximum is n number. So this particular functionality is controlled by cardinality. That's a property. So here cardinality is a property that will control this storage capacity of a node. Storage capacity means what is the minimum count of records you are expecting and what is the maximum number of records you are expecting. That is nothing but cardinality. So let me write that basic point here. So it is to define the storage capacity of a node. That is the meaning of cardinality. In the coming examples, you'll get more clarity again. So as of now, here you can see I'm using cardinality as 0 to n. Minimum 0, n is maximum. So these are the three properties: node name, dictionary structure, cardinality 0 to n. And then I'm using add attributes from structure. So you can choose the required fields here, whichever you want to display in your WebdynPro screen. I'm selecting some of the fields. So a node is created. And this node is created in component controller. Just recognize that point. Now, in methods, component controller, you write the functionality, because whichever functionality is main functionality you implement in component controller, because it is global. So as of now, I am just creating one custom method to implement our functionality. Something like execute MD is a method I'm creating. And this can be accessed by view 1, view 2, view 3, view 4. That's the reason why I'm creating in component controller. So let me double click. So you can see there is a method now. So here you need to implement your select query. Like something like select star from, you can use VBAK into some corresponding fields of table. You have to define your internal table, that is LT underscore ITAB. In this application, LT ITAB becomes internal table because node name is ITAB. If node name is ITAB, then internal table becomes LT ITAB. If your node name is XYZ, then internal table becomes XYZ. If your node name is EMP, then internal table becomes EMP. So this is a syntax we try to use. Internal table syntax is always like LT underscore node name. Don't forget this. So that we are using here. In our case, node name is ITAB, so let us use LT ITAB. But here in this step, the data is coming from database to internal table. So that means this is our step 1. I gave step 1. Step 1 is database records should come to LT ITAB, that is nothing but internal table. So that is done through select query. That is nothing but step 1. Now in step 2, what you need to do is you have to assign your internal table records to node ITAB. The records always must come to node ITAB from internal table. This is compulsory if you want to show the data in WebdynPro. So that's the reason why I am trying to get node reference through wizard. Here this is the first time we are using. There is a wizard option. So I am selecting ITAB here, and when you use set plus table, it will generate one method automatically. Here you can see this code is auto generated. Bind underscore table. This is important in today's class. After 2 or 3 examples, I'll try to make you write this coding on our own. In today's class, we are depending on auto-generated code, but in the coming classes, we are going to write manually if required. But in today's class, focus only on this method. That is bind table, and for bind table, we are assigning internal table here, LTI tab. So here you can see select query. I am trying to put just before bind table. So you can also give some shortcut like this. Instead of writing all these things, you can also directly pass LTI tab. So this is step 1 and this is step 2, bind table. Without bind table, you can't display the data in WebdynPro. So this step is compulsory. So I'll try to do it again, just observe. I'm repeating this procedure. Whenever you want to generate bind table method, just apply this procedure. Wizard, you can select context, select I tab, and you can use set plus table. Set plus table is the procedure to generate here bind table method. You can see this. And internal table is already declared here. That means system generated, LTI tab. So as developer point of view, we have to write our own select query, that is select statement, this one. And this internal table is already passing here for bind table. So this is our step 2. According to our notepad, this is nothing but step 2. In step 2, we are passing our internal table LTI tab. So after completing 2 steps, I can say when you run the program, data will come to this node. After completing those 2 lines, data will come to this node when you run the program. But this node is under component controller. So now data will be available globally because the data is coming to component controller. So let us concentrate on step 3. Step 3, we have to maintain what? Context mapping between component controller and view controller. Between component controller, view controller, you have to maintain context mapping. This is for data transfer. So let us implement how exactly it works. I'm going to view 1. This is nothing but view 1, and view 1 contains a controller here with a context. You can see. Left side, view controller, right side, component controller. View controller contains context. Right side, component controller also contains a context. So we need to maintain this relation now, context mapping. So that means just you need to drag drop. You select I tab here, you drag drop to this context. This relation, we call it as context mapping. So when you drag drop from component controller context to view controller context, so mapping is established. So because of this mapping, I can say data transfer will take place when you run the program. Now next step. Step 4 is context binding. So that means you have to create the table. You can go to layout. Here you can create one table. You can go to wizard. There is a table option. This I have discussed in our one of the example. One basic example I have explained this, how to create a table. So I'm selecting table, and for table I want to maintain context binding. You can see the label here, context binding. I'm selecting context with I tab. So this is the area where context binding is taking place. You can see these things. So whichever fields you want to display in table, you select those fields. Remaining fields you can ignore. This relation we call it as binding. So because of context binding, data transfer will take place again. So just let us continue. Now you can see table is created with all the required fields. VBLN, ERDAT, ERNAM, net value, sales organization. So all the fields are created here. But one basic point you need to understand is your table is always maintaining relation with a node that you can see it here. Don't disturb, but you can see the relation here. This is nothing but binding. And binding is maintained with iTab. You can see that. It is already done. Just for our confirmation, I'm just trying to show this one. When you create a table, binding will take place with a node. So whichever node is maintaining a relationship, that node will send the data to table. And if you want to increase the size of the table, you can use visible row count, something like 10 rows or whatever. 10 or 15 you can provide. You can see the table now. So along with table, you can create one button. Because when I click on button, I want to display the data. So you can insert one button here. Those who are attending regularly, you can understand how to create button and everything. So I just want to provide button. And as I said, button means always you have to use text and on action. We have already done this. Now I'm providing button name as something like get data. This is a very basic example. So I'm using get data here. And for button, there should be some action. So I'm creating that. Get data. There's a button with get data. So now, let me highlight this point. Our main functionality is available in which method? Execute method. Execute method, and this is created in component controller. Don't forget that. And our view controller contains action, that is get data action. So now this get data action has to call the method available in component controller, because in select method, in the execute method, we have implemented select query and bind table. I want to execute that functionality. Already this logic is written, but from get data action, I want to call execute method of component controller. That is our requirement. So remember one basic point. Whenever you want to refer component controller, we use WD underscore CYMP underscore controller. This is the reference always we used to use in real time also. That will refer to component controller. So that's the reason why what I'm trying to do is I'm going to this action now. So in this action, you have to refer component controller by using this syntax. In real time also, we have to use the same thing. Component controller, WD-CYMP controller, and you call your main functionality, which is available in execute MD. That's it. And WD-CYMP controller is a standard reference that you can see it here. WD-CYMP controller, and this always refers to component controller. So in the coming examples, I'll give more clarity, but as of now, this is the technique we need to follow to refer from any controller. You can refer component controller by using this reference, WD-CYMP controller. So this is a final step, and let me activate now. I'm just activating. Now we can create one application. and let us test this. So you can see a button is available along with output table. So when I click on get data button, you can expect data coming from VBAK table. You can see the data. So let me ask some doubts. Let me take some doubts. Hi students, are you able to follow?
Sir, is it possible to add multiple dictionary structure?
No, it's not like that. You have to add all the fields into one structure. That structure you can take here.
Okay. Again, can I add another structure?
Yes, you can add another structure with a separate node.
Okay. And sir, for that component controller, it means like for every view we need to add that one.
Which one?
Sorry, I forgot that answer.
WDC
Okay, sir,
UIP
can you
controller?
tell me what is bind?
What is? What is?
No, sir, leave it, sir. What is bind table?
Bind table, what it will do is, it will assign your internal table records to node. Node is different here, internal table is different in WebdynPro. So, first always bring data to internal table. Then you try to assign the data to node. So if you want to assign internal table data to node, then we use this method, bind table. It's a standard method.
Okay, sir. Sir, then what type of errors can be coming according to cardinality?
I'll be telling all those list of errors. There will be some 20 to 25 errors. I'll give the list of all those things.
Okay, so generally, sir, what is standard means we need to maintain for cardinality 0 to n?
Right. When you are fetching data into table, it's better you take 0 to n, or you can use 1 to n when you are bringing data to table.
Okay, sir.
And if you are bringing data to form means it contains only one record. So you can use 0 to 1, or you can use 1 to 1. So this is the approach we follow.
Okay.
I am writing here so that it will be useful for others also. So this is the approach we follow. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what about others? Any other doubts you have?
So you want to say that from multiple tables data fetching is not possible?
No. Multiple tables we can fetch the data through join conditions. We can write inner join, left outer join. We are going to do that.
Okay.
Here in today's...
Because in a report, 2 to 3 tables are involved in that.
Yes, when you fetch the data, we can get data from multiple tables into one single node.
Okay.
But how to bring data from multiple tables? You can directly use inner join.
Okay.
So after getting data to inner join, through inner join, you can assign your final data to one single node.
Okay.
And that final node must have fields from fields from multiple tables.
Or multiple nodes.
One single final node should have fields from multiple tables. That means you take one separate structure. In that structure, you add all field 1, field 2, field 3 from different tables. And you try to create a node with that structure.
Okay.
I'll take one separate example to demonstrate this scenario. What about others? Sahu, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Srinivas?
Yeah, yes, sir. Please.
Okay, there may be some confusion in this example.
Sir,
Okay.
sir, 1 minute. Sir, hello. Sir, is it audible?
Yes.
Hello.
Who is this?
Yes, sir. If there are multiple views, Chinmay here, sir.
Yes.
So we need to use that same thing, means like WD component control for every view.
Yeah, this will be available.
Hello?
So, WD underscore COMP underscore controller is the reference that will be available in each and every view controller. If you create view 2, view 3, view 4, every view contains this reference. But this is to refer component controller. From view 1, you can refer component controller. From view 1, you can refer view 1 component controller by using WD underscore COMP underscore controller. In program, you have to write like this. Not only that, from view 2 also you can refer component controller. From view 3 or view 4, whatever. It can be view 1, view 2, view 3, view 4. But whenever you want to refer component controller, you can apply the same reference. This is a standard reference given by SAP. Sahu, is it clear now?
Yeah, yes.
So what I'll do is I'll repeat this entire procedure because all the coming examples depends on the same scenario.
Yes, sir.
All coming examples depends on this scenario. So this is a foundation. So let me repeat this entire procedure within few minutes. So just observe. So I'm taking one separate component here with some window and a view. So this is how we have created. Now I want to make use of component controller, so let me go to that. So this is a global context, so you can create one node. You can right click, you can create a node. So this is like iTab. I want to add fields from VBAK. In today's class, I'll take only one single table. So VBAK cardinality, as I said, it should be 0 to n because minimum count is 0, maximum is n number. So that we are defining. And we need to add the fields from structure. So I'm adding attributes from the table structure. So I'm selecting these fields. Now you go to methods. And whichever method you create in component controller, that can be accessed from all the views, view 1, view 2, view 3. So that we are going to understand in the coming example also. But this method becomes global because it is created in component controller. So let me double click that method and let us write the functionality. So here, first of all, you can get the node reference through wizard. And get bind table method through wizard. Without wizard also I'll tell in the coming examples. These are very basic, and first example I don't want to touch the code. But in the coming examples I'll tell you how to write the code without wizard also. So let me do this now. Wizard context itab set plus table. Set plus table means you are assigning the data to from internal table to node. So for that, bind table method is auto-generated, and this is your internal table. Just what you need to do is you write your select query. That's it. Select star from BBAK into some corresponding fields of table LTI tab. In our program, LTI tab is internal table, and that is assigned here. You can see that. And this internal table is already declared by wizard. You can see that. And in the coming examples, I'll make you write this code line by line, and I'll make you understand line by line. But in today's class, just concentrate only on these two lines. Select query and bind table. So that's nothing but this one. Select query, bind table. Now you need to maintain context mapping. So go to view 1. I'm going to view 1 context. So for context mapping, just drag drop. When you drag drop, data will be transferred through, when you run the application, data will be transferred. Now we are just mapping the fields and node, but when you run the program, data will come from one node to another node. So context mapping is maintained. This is what we have done. Now we have to maintain context binding. So let me go to layout. You can take wizard. You can select table and choose context and choose itab. So this is the area where context binding is taking place. Whichever fields you want to use, select them. Then continue. So you'll get all the fields. And this is a point I was highlighting here. Data source is maintaining binding with itab. Because of this only, data is displayed on table. And if you want to increase the size of the table, you can go to visible row count. Say for example 15, whatever. So you can see table size is increased. Now this is what we have done just now. Context binding. Data transfer to table. So now I want to create one button. You can right click, you can insert element. You can choose one button. Button is on top, but don't forget button means you have to use text and on action. I'm taking button text as something like search data, whatever. You can use anything, any label. And search data should have some action, so I'm creating that. This action. So from this action is always created in view controllers, remember that. But our main functionality is under component controller. You can recognize here this action search data. It is generated in view controller. Search data action is generated in view controller, but our main functionality is in component controller. That's the reason why we use WDCOMP controller, and you can call one simple method which you have created, that is execute MD. In between brackets, put at least one space. So component controller functionality we are accessing from view controller. That's a main point. You have to understand from this line. I'll repeat, component controller main functionality we are accessing from view controller. That's the purpose of this line. Now onwards, we are going to use this regularly. So almost everything done. So let me activate and test it. So you can right click and you can test it. So on search data, it will display the data. But now, say for example, I want to display this table output in one tray. I want to take one separate tray. So that is also possible. You can see this. Here you can right click, you can insert element and you can choose one tray. Tray means it will create separate section. It will create one separate tray. For that you can provide some tray header. And inside the tray you can add everything. Button, you can add, and you can add table, everything you can add here. So this is how you can get the tray. When you run the output, you'll get some clarity. Let us observe. So let me run this. Here you can see there is a tray. This functionality is normal, but tray means you can minimize and you can maximize. This is a functionality of tray. When you double click also, it will minimize. When you double click, it will maximize. It's like a tray. This is very simple. Okay, let me take some doubts now. Hi students, any doubts? Are you able to follow my explanation?
Excuse me, I have a doubt.
Okay, ask me.
How can we maintain space between the button and the table?
How can you?
Maintain some space between the button and the table. Display table.
Button and table, if you want to maintain space, then we are going to apply some concept like, here you can see there are some properties here. Vertical gutter, you can see something like large. If this is not working, then we have to use one more concept like invisible element. What you do is you can add one invisible element here. You can right click, insert element. So invisible element, what you can do is you can increase this one, it's large or something like that. Vertical gutter. If still this is not working, then we have to change the layouts. see there is a layout. Okay, grid layout we are taking, and you can see there is invisible element, and you can increase some height. Let me provide 30. You can see now. Santosh, is it clear?
Yes.
We are increasing the height of the invisible element. Invisible element is nothing but it will create the space. For invisible element, you can increase as much height as possible. You say, for example, 50 pixels I'm using. Now you can see the difference in output. Here
Sir,
you
in
can
general, so
here
in
you
order
can
to
see
have the
now.
spaces between where. Okay, sorry.
Is it clear now? Now there is a space between table and button.
Sir, if you want a button in the bottom means we need to go for matrix layout.
Which one? Button at the bottom, right side, or below the table?
In the middle, I think.
So those things I am going to discuss when I explain group concept.
Okay.
So don't worry now, because layout adjustments is little bit typical. That I'll take one separate session on that.
Okay, sir.
So, but as of now, Santosh doubt is concerned, you can directly use invisible element whenever required and increase the height of that invisible element.
Okay.
And here you can see column span of a button. If you use like that, so these are the properties you need to adjust. But instead of using tray, you try to use group and set these properties. There is no difference, but you try to take one group instead of tray. Here you can right click, insert element, and you can choose like group. And then use invisible element and try to change the layouts. You can get the required output. Others, still you have any doubt? Okay, except layouts, is the functionality clear?
Yes, sir.
Layouts will satisfy you, don't worry, but except layouts, any other functionality problem?
Everything is clear, sir. Only thing is layouts.
Layouts I'll tell you when I use group concept.
Okay.
Or else let me explain that layout also here. I'll try to use group now. Just observe, within 5 seconds or 5 minutes I can complete. So let me make it normal now. Forget about tray now. Now you can see no tray is available. Only button and table is available. Now my requirement is I want to adjust exactly at the center. This table, button, everything should be at the center now. So for that we have to apply a group here. You can take one group. You can take this like group. And in this group, you can add your button. You can add your table. You can add button and table. And moreover, what you try to do is you try to take one matrix layout here. You can take one matrix layout So after taking matrix layout, what we can do is we can make this particular group width. That is important. Say for example, I am taking 100 pixels or for example 1000 pixels. So let us concentrate on table first. Table is part of group and group contains width as 1000 pixels. So now from left hand side, I want to increase the gap. So you can right click here, you can insert one element as invisible element. So invisible element, make it before table. Now what you can do is invisible element also contains a width now. That width you can provide, say for example 333. So now there is a chance of moving table to center now. You can see the difference now. Say for example, let me make it like 400. Then you can see at group level for background, white color background, I am using SAP color here. So this is more meaningful. Let us understand the difference now in the output. You can see the difference now. Here you can see the difference. So let me make it exactly like 300. So that would be better. So still you can make it center. Just reduce the width of invisible element. Now table is center. Similarly, you can adjust buttons also. What you can do is you can take one element. Now you can take one transparent container. Transparent container is also like one separate section. So in transparent container, I want to add button and table. Button table both are in transparent container. So now you can see the difference in your output. Here you can see now exactly at the center of your screen. So this is how we are going to adjust layouts in this manner. Group concept, invisible element concept, and invisible element should have width property. These three things we have to use in combination. Combination of group, combination of width along with layouts is compulsory. When you want to get outputs according to your layout adjustment. Okay, let me take the doubts.
Sir, in the web screen, can you add our own, hello? Hello, sir?
Okay, hello?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Sir, in the web screen, can you add our own menus, means like for sorting or means like in PF status we are doing in ABAP. Can you do here, sir?
You want to sort the records, you mean to say that?
Yeah, right, sir.
Yes, we are going to handle that sorting functionality directly on ALV table. When you use ALV concept directly, sorting, filtering, search options, all those things will come automatically.
Okay. Sir, I need the source data button in the below, means like in the bottom, middle one.
Middle of this particular screen?
Yeah, right, sir.
Then
That
what you do?
table, below the
Yeah,
table.
that's what I'm saying. So instead of here, you can directly use this one now. There's a button now. This button also has some width. Okay, again you have to, what you need to do is again you have to take some different options here. Like
Okay.
button. Inside container again you have to add the options. You can insert one more something like invisible element here. Let me take some different name and make it up. Now there is a invisible element.
Yeah.
So what you do is invisible element you have to again first of all make the width of this one. Say for example I'm taking transparent container 400. In that you can make invisible element, say for example 100. Okay, let me check. So it's not at the center, so still you have to adjust all these things.
Yeah, that is center.
So now you can see that H alignment, horizontal alignment, you are making it center.
Okay.
So these properties are simple. The only thing is once you go through all the property values, then you can come across.
Okay, sir.
So here now it is more meaningful. Clear?
Yes, sir.
What is the default size of a view or window?
Default?
Default size.
Default size will be according to the resolution of your screen. That will be maximum, it will be like 1000 pixels. According to SAP documentation, there is no particular width given by SAP, but we have to assume that width is by default 1000.
And the stable area?
Table area, that width you can't control directly. Here you can see according to the columns it will generate. But if you want to adjust, then there will be a table width also. Let us verify here. You can see. Every table, every screen element has this width property. If you want to control, you can control from here.
My question is related to like, for example, the output we see in that page, web page. Some pages are like 800 pixels. Are you getting what I'm saying?
No, I am not.
Some will
You
be
are not
having
clear. Your voice is not clear. Hello?
yeah, actually, I just want to know what the output we getting on the page.
Okay, complete your
Hello?
question.
Okay, the output we are getting on the page because page having different properties like 800 pixels website web page will be there. and more than that also will be there. So how will you decide that it should be visible in all the related things?
That is through experience only you can get. There is no hard code principle for this. This is totally, layout adjustment is totally through experience you can gain this knowledge.
Thank you.
Sir, I have that.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Hello, yeah, Hemadri.
Hello, sir. This is Hemadri, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have one doubt. When we are creating component controller,
Okay.
we given a name iTab.
Yes.
But inside the method, we have given LT underscore iTab.
Yes.
How it is the relationship to
Yeah. So here,
transferring data?
yeah, I got the point. So node name, we have taken it as iTab. But in our programming, internal table always becomes like
LT underscore
iTab. So when you want to bring data to internal table, you have to use this naming convention. But when you create a context node, you can take any name. Say for example, if you're taking ABC as a node, then you have to use your internal table as LT underscore ABC. That's a naming convention we follow. So node is different, internal table is different when you are writing the program. If your node name is XYZ, then your internal table becomes LT underscore XYZ. But I can say,
It will take automatically. That's naming convention.
yeah, it will be declared automatically if you are using wizard.
Okay. And I have one more question.
Okay.
Hello, sir.
Hello, yeah, I am listening.
When we are creating that cardinality in the
Okay.
property, 0 to 1 is there, right?
Yeah.
Is there any relationship between that normal data dictionary cardinality and this WebdynPro cardinality?
That is different. Data dictionary cardinality is nothing to do with this one. This is WebdynPro level.
Okay.
This whatever we have discussed today, that cardinality is specific to node.
Okay.
In a node, how many records you want to store? What is the minimum? What is the maximum? That is defined and that is controlled in WebdynPro through this concept.